Today I have a special little video for you on training purpose. This should really be the foundation upon which you build your program. Understand, there needs to be a purpose first for you to build a program for. Alright, so today we're going to be talking about that and getting to the why of what you are doing. Alright, why is it you are doing what you are doing? Or, in other words also, what are you training for? And how should you be building a program for that? And, are you training for the things that you want to be training for, really? Because I'll often find that people are training in ways that are not actually aligned with their purpose. There's the one. People are not often training in direct alignment with their purpose. They're oftentimes doing exercises that don't really serve their best interests and their purpose. Alright, so let's talk about what you are training for and how to train for that purpose. Alright, because training really does need a purpose in order to be effective. What works in fitness depends upon what you are trying to do. Okay, so if you are just going to the gym and doing whatever, just sort of winging it and, randomly trying out different exercises, you're going to get very little results because your training is aimless, it's purposeless, right? And you wouldn't be able to tell anyone why you're doing what you're doing unless you're telling them, hey, I'm just experimenting, trying to figure this all out, which is okay to do when you're a beginner, right? But you want to figure out what you want to be training for, what it is you're trying to accomplish or do, what your goals are, and how you should be training for that thing, okay? Because what happens is, after a while of, just training aimlessly, just sort of going to the gym and doing whatever exercises you can on whatever machines are free, you get a little bit of results out of that at first, but very shortly you're going to start spinning your wheels in the mud and not really getting anywhere because there's nowhere for you to get, because you haven't set a goal for yourself. You're not training for anything, right? So if you want to get anywhere, you have to know where it is you want to go, right? And then you have to be able to figure out how it is you're going to get there. Alright, so like I said, what works depends upon what you are trying to do. And what happens is, anytime I'm at the gym, I will be talking to people and they'll often ask me about my training, talk about their training, and ask questions and for advice. And, whenever they tell me what they're doing, I'll ask them why. Okay, why are you doing that? And they often will not have a good answer, right? It really amounts to some influencer or fitness guru or fitness teacher somewhere did the exercise and made it seem like a good exercise to do, and they started doing it, but that's about as far as they can go. They usually don't even explain it that well, honestly. They'll just be like, hey, I thought this was a good exercise to do, and I'll say, well, yeah, it is, but it's for certain things. And oftentimes people, when I ask them, okay, well, what are you training for? And they either won't be able to give me a good answer, or they'll say that they're training for something that the exercises we're talking about are not in alignment. So someone might tell me that they're doing certain exercises to build muscle when those exercises are more for strength. That's a common occurrence at the gym. People will start talking to me and they'll say something like, oh, well, yeah, I'm doing this, and that's a good exercise, right? I'm like, well, depending on what you're doing it for, what are you training for? What are your goals? And, they might say something like, well, I'm training to get bigger, right? So I heard that lifting heavy was the best way to get big. And I'll say, no, it's not. It's the best way to get strong. The exercise you're doing is more of a strength training exercise. That's not going to cause hypertrophy adaptations. So this happens so often. People don't know exactly what different exercises are for, what adaptations they are causing. They're doing exercises that are good. All exercises are good for something, right? But that doesn't mean they're necessarily good for what you training for. And with a lot of these people on Instagram that just make it their job to record videos of themselves doing different exercises and quickly run out of basic exercises to do, and so then they just start doing endless variations of exercises and then inventing exercises and putting things together that are overcomplicated and unnecessary, and oftentimes just them showing off. But they're making it seem like every exercise is so great. And then what happens is a lot of people end up trying to replicate exercises that have been, marketed to seem really cool and really good to do, yet they aren't really functional and good for the training purpose of most people. So you need to know what it is you're training for and how to train for that specific thing. And any exercises you are doing, you need to be able to answer the question of why you are doing that exercise and what it is for, which should be in alignment with your purpose. And I think that one of the things that confuses people about this is a lot of people who are beginners don't know about a lot of the different purposes that one can train for. You know, sometimes people, when I ask them those questions, they'll look at me confused, like I don't even know how to answer that because I don't even know that there are different, you know, purposes and things to train for, right? So what I want to do in this video is to give you a list of common purposes that you can be training for and how you would train for those things specifically. All right, and notice I use the term specifically there, and that is really what we're dealing with here is what is called the principle of specificity. All right, so your training needs to be specific to what it is you want to accomplish or what your training goals are. Okay, and the more training specificity you have, the better your results are going to be. And, you know, the more specific your goals can become. All right, so let's talk about some of the different specific purposes to train for. And the first and foremost one on the list, which most people are training for and don't even want to admit or talk about, which I think is another reason why people don't come up with good answers when I ask this question, is their appearance and sexual attractiveness, especially. Most people are training to become better looking. Like, that is the biggest motivating factor for most people who work out, is they want to look better, specifically to people who they are sexually attracted to and want to have sex with. You know, not so much people who they just want to be friends with, you know, or work with, but, you know, they want to have greater sex appeal. And if that is what you want, the way to train specifically for that is to do hypertrophy training with more emphasis on higher rep ranges and shredding, and to accomplish the shredding especially, you want to have a diet in a caloric deficit for this. All right, so that's going to get you very cut and aesthetic looking so that all of your muscles are showing through, and something you'll be able to accomplish more quickly than trying to like get exotically big like a bodybuilder. So you don't want to be training necessarily like a bodybuilder if you're just trying to, you know, get more attractive. All right, all you need is to do a cutting phase, or, you know, maybe an extended cutting phase, or a couple cutting phases depending on how much cutting you have to do. All right, but if you are trying to get muscularly large, you want to get big, then you're going to be doing hypertrophy training at any rep range in the hypertrophy spectrum from 5 to 30, and you're going to do this with high intensity, okay, and you're also going to be doing this in a caloric surplus, okay, so this is going to be different than the shredding that you were doing in the previous example. All right, now if you are trying to get strong, you want to lift heavy, mostly in the 1 to 5 rep range, all right? Though you'll be doing some accessory work in the 5 to 10 for good measure, maybe even 10 plus for some exercises. And you're gonna be doing this at a low volume, and you're gonna have longer rest intervals, all right, between your sets to recover, and longer recovery periods between workouts, all right? And you're also only going to be focusing on basic compound movement patterns, except for, you know, some of your accessory work. But, you know, most of the movement patterns for this training are going to be basic as compared to hypertrophy training, where you're using a much wider exercise selection, and there's a lot more specificity with how you're doing targeting and such, all right? Now, if you want to get both big and strong at the same time, then what you want to do is focus most of your energies in the 5 to 10 rep range, which is going to be building hypertrophy and strength at the same time. All right, and you're going to want to then pepper in some heavier work for extra strength, you know, in the 1 to 5 rep range, and then also some lighter accessory work, you know, for your, you know, smaller muscles. And you can get big and strong at the same time, though, of course, you won't be doing as much of either one of those if you were to focus all of your energies on doing just one, all right? So keep that in mind. Now, if you are looking to get athletic, then you're going to be doing some functional hypertrophy training, some strength training, some endurance training, some plyometrics, and some sport-specific skill training, like, you know, a lot of sport-specific skill training, especially, you know, more and more as time goes on and you get closer to competitions, all right? And, you know, your focus on any one of those categories that I listed is going to be, you know, more if it's required for that sport. So if you have a sport where you're required to have more endurance, obviously you'll focus more on that. All right, and you're going to be focusing also more and more on sport performance as time goes on, where you're going to, you know, stop going to the gym as much, stop doing so much hypertrophy training and strength training, and just be, you know, actually performing the sport that you are supposed to be, you know, training for. And this also will involve a lot of periodization and phase potentiation, especially for professionals. All right, this type of training can get very academic and scientific and complicated for some sports. All right, so there's a lot of specificity there as well. All right, and then next, another common goal is to lose weight. And for this type of training, You're going to be doing a lot of endurance and cardio and aerobics type stuff. And you're also going to have a pretty serious caloric deficit. You're basically, going to be trying to cut your calories as much as you can, right? Depending on how much weight you want to lose. Obviously, it's going to be different if you only want to lose 20 pounds versus 200. And you can go as fast or slow with it as you want, okay, as long as it's healthy. And the workouts that you do when you're losing weight are fast-paced with little to no rest intervals between sets. A lot of these are going to be pretty much constant movement. All right, what is ideal is steady state cardio. And obviously this type of exercise is all about burning calories, okay? So the exercises you do should be selected for the purpose of simply burning calories. You don't need a lot of resistance. All you need is a lot of movement, fast-paced movement to create, that cardio and burn calories. And then this relies heavily on the diet being in a caloric deficit so that you can, cut the calories down that are already stored in your body and burn those through the workout, and then not replenishing those calories that you burned in your workout. But you do want to make sure that you are getting enough protein, and you would probably want to up your protein when doing this type of diet while decreasing the fat and the carbs and sugar and such. Okay. Next is training for power and speed, which are almost the same exact type of adaptations, so that's why I'm listing them together. So for these, you're going to be doing things like powerlifting in the 1 to 3 rep range with Olympic lifts such as cleans, which focus on explosivity. And you're also going to be doing plyometrics, which also focus on explosivity, and some fast training like starting strength or sprinting or whatever speed skill you are training to develop. And basically whatever movement patterns you're doing here, what you're focusing on is building explosivity. Okay, that is how you develop power and speed. And if you were training for endurance, you are going to be doing low weight or low resistance training with extremely high reps, like 25 and up, and I mean like up to thousands of reps. And you're going to be training with long session durations. I mean, that's what makes it endurance training. And diet-wise, you're going to want a carbohydrate surplus for this. Now, if you were just training for health, you want to focus on cardio and aerobics, mobility and flexibility, and maybe some basic hypertrophy just for good measure, especially to make sure, you don't lose muscles as you age. And you just want to have a healthy diet with caloric balance, assuming that you don't need to lose weight, which is a part of getting healthy in spite of what the feminist and the whole, body positivity movement wants you to think. Now, if you are training to become a bodybuilder and do physique competitions, you're going to be doing high volume, high frequency hypertrophy training with a high degree of individualization and per muscle specificity. And again, it's going to be almost entirely in the hypertrophy rep range of 5 to 30 reps with a high degree of progressive overload of all of the training variables. So that can include weight, and you might get down below 5 reps depending on what style of training you're using, right? But basically, there's going to be a manipulation of a lot of different training variables here, and there's a lot to bodybuilding, right? A lot of systematization and programming and periodization can be used in it as well. And then there is also a dietary component in that you're going to have very precisely calculated macros and supplements to be a bodybuilder. And now lastly, if you are just exercising for fun, which there's nothing wrong with that, then just stick with machines and or playing sports or whatever it is you want to do. And then now at least you know how to train for other things if you ever want to. And just keep that specificity principle in mind, right? Not just for the bigger picture, but that should be considered for each and every individual exercise that you select for your training, right? You need to be able to answer the question, what are you doing it for and why? Right? You might even need to be able to answer the question, why do you think it is for that? That's something I asked a friend just the other day who had been doing strength training for many years and wanted to finally switch to hypertrophy training, and he's basically just treating it like strength training with lower weights and higher reps, which it is not. So I was asking him all these questions, and then one of the times I asked him, okay, so why do you think this exercise is for that? Right? Why are you choosing to do this for hypertrophy training, right? These exercises are more for strength training. So make sure you know what your exercises are for. You can answer the question, why are you doing that? And also, why do you think it is for that? You have to actually do research. You can't just be copying gym bros and such. Not if you want, specific results, as I said. And every exercise and technique that you use should really be for some specific purpose, right? Otherwise, why are you doing it? How do you know it's even worth doing? How do you know it's going to produce any results for you if you don't know specifically what it is even for, and why it is supposed to be for that. And this goes not just for individual exercises, but specific techniques and variations and stuff. All right, make sure you know this stuff. And then lastly, when it comes to growing specific muscles, since that can be another purpose that people have in their training. They may want to grow bigger pecs or bigger shoulders, something like that. When there is a specific muscle that you want to grow on an individual basis, what you want to do is a higher volume of work for that with a higher frequency and a higher number of exercises targeting that muscle in different ways and from different angles. Okay, so that's where crossover exercises come in handy. Doing a lot of variety of exercises like I taught you in phase 3 of the program is really needed. So those are all of the different common training purposes that you can train for.